Yeah, welcome back. This is Kurt Phelps, President and CEO of Fellow. Welcome back for your quarterly campaign. If you did it last quarter, great. If you've waited a few quarters, that's fine too. The key is let's get back to consistently doing on a quarterly basis. So I'm so happy you're coming back to do it. It's really important to maintain those relationships. So this video is just going to focus on setting that up and educating you of the process and reminding you not only the things you need to do, but the process to go through. Now, if you remember, there was 3 tiers to Fellow. We had the professional, we had the elite, and we had the platinum. And most of all of you start at the platinum level. And if we go under Frank here, which is one of our membership here, we go under my subscription here, we're going to see those different levels. Okay. Professional, elite, and platinum. And Frank is an elite member in here because he's no longer a new member. So new members start here. And the whole goal is when you're a professional, the green and the pink here will not work. You don't have access to get anything reviewed, and you can't schedule any appointments with your networking expert. As an elite member, you now have access to do that. Of course, you don't need the person as much as the platinum because you've already set the foundation in place. So you have a couple choices here. If you changed a new job, if you haven't campaigned in a while, and you want to just set up a conversation to begin with your networking expert, you can hit the pink button here, upgrade to an elite, and then schedule that phone call, and we can talk strategy with you, right? Go through the process, what type of campaign do you want to send out? You want to talk about your personal website and make changes. The other process is go ahead and do that, make those changes, and then hit the review request button, which is going to force you to jump to an elite to get us to critique. So again, you can talk with us right away by hitting the elite button and schedule an appointment with the pink, or you can start making your changes and then use the review request button to allow us to critique things. Because again, you shouldn't be sending any campaigns to your network without us critiquing. You should make major changes to your personal website without us critiquing. That's the whole point of being here, is don't use your network as your test audience. So, it just depends on if you want to just use the review request or you want to schedule a call. Sometimes throughout the quarter, or throughout the year, you're just going to be making some changes and you just want us to review. There's no reason to schedule a call. Then the review request is going to be more the elite is going to be more for the review request than necessarily schedule appointment. It's completely up to you. So first part of this process here is, first thing you want to look at is before you campaign to your network, we got to update your website. So if we go to the personal website and hit edit, here's your personal website. Now, be reminded the orange and yellow, every window that you go to, make sure it's been maybe 2 months or 3 months or even 6 months since you've been here. Check the orange and yellow for every window. Get educated again of all the buttons, what every button means, and all the, in every single window. And then of course we have Fellow Insights now that you can go back to get educated on certain things, from training videos to obviously webinars. Here we have some webinars, how to take all of your contacts out of LinkedIn. And of course, we have letters that you can look at again here, and more websites than even before. So, more examples of websites to help you evolve. But the first thing you want to look at with your website is change your background picture. We want to change this every single time you communicate. We want to change the world, getting them to realize that our website's going to evolve and change throughout the year. It's not going to be static. So a new background picture, pick any picture you want, as long as it has a story behind it. Career accomplishments, do you have any new ones? Again, this should be evolving and growing. Did you forget some in the past that you want to add to this? Work experience, any board roles, any advisors or consulting roles, any full-time new jobs that you've taken. Let's make sure we're adding to this, right? This should be evolving and changing throughout the year, as you're communicating with your network. And then be reminded that you have a question down here of why did you pick your background picture? Make sure that you're updating that. Now, if you've made some pretty good changes here, make sure you send a review request. Let us look at it. Let us take a look at it. It'll go to your networking expert and they will critique it and get back to you, just like when you first started. Make sure you're saving all the time. And then when you're ready to go, you got to hit publish. So no matter how many changes you've made in here, until you hit that publish button, it doesn't go live. So if you notice that you're making changes in your website isn't changing, it's because Save is just saving internal until you hit publish, it doesn't go live. But any major changes, you should get critiqued. Again, if you're making minor changes, not a big deal. But you should be getting someone to look at it here at Fellow. It's the reason you're here. Now, your contacts. So how the contacts work is you have this date created over here. So if you sort by date created, it'll go from the most current backwards. And so you can kind of get an idea of when is the last time that you imported your LinkedIn connections. We all are adding new connections, especially if you were a new member previously. You could have been, you went through a search to build your network bigger. And now 2 or 3 months later, a lot of those people you send first connections out are now connecting with you. So, or in some cases, you have some missing that you want to fill in. But this gives you a rough idea of the last time that Frank exported his connections, which is January 1st. So 26. Now, you probably did it a week before this. We don't export out and import into Fellow the same day because we have to do a little cleansing. So, give yourself a rough, date, maybe 4, 5, or 6 days or a couple weeks before, if you remember, how far before you exported, before you imported in. And then when you go to LinkedIn, just a quick reminder, under your privacies and settings, data privacy, how LinkedIn uses your data, you're going to select the second button and hit connections and hit request archive. Again, that's under the data privacy, under privacies and settings. So you're going to get an email, and within 10 minutes, you'll hit the button to come back here. It'll be a download archive button. When you hit the download archive button, there'll be a zip file. You hit the zip file, open up one file called connections.csv. And just like before, make sure you open that file up in Connections or inside of Excel, the Connections file. And then here is the file, if you remember. The top 3 rows you want to get rid of. And then just, let me open this up so you can see it a little bit better. But here you have the connected on date. So what you're going to do is you're going to scroll down to January of whatever date you feel that you connected with somebody. So in this particular case, January 20th is the date. So I'm going to pick anything before January 20th, and I'm going to get rid of everybody all the way down to the bottom, and I'm going to delete that entire list. So only thing should be left is January 20th to today. And then you go through the same process. You're going to insert a column, for phone numbers. And then you're going to look each and every single one up on LinkedIn and grab their mobile and their email address. Now, same criteria, make sure you're importing people at the right level and the people you've met at least once. So if you haven't met the person, you got to send them communication inside of LinkedIn and get connected and talk and catch up. This should really be focused, again, on that concept of importing. Now, important here before we import, go ahead and fix first names right here. We used to, probably you were taught to do it in Fellow, do it right here. Fix the first name and last name while you're right here. And then, of course, get rid of your connected on when you're done, because you only need these, 6 columns. Now, if everybody has a mobile number, that's okay. Again, typically 10 or 15%. If anybody doesn't have an email address, send them a message right then asking for it. You'd love to communicate with them outside of LinkedIn. We'd love to have your email address. Now, the system, when you import the system in, so you're going to go back, once you save this file as a CSV again, remember, don't save it as an Excel, save it as a .csv again. When you go to import that into Fellow, if there is any duplicates by email address, it won't import it in. So if there's a little bit of an overlap there and you have some with an email address that are similar, it won't import that in. Now, if for some particular reason you've actually imported somebody in that's also in here, meaning you may have imported their work email address in the past and now they finally connected with you 3 or 4 months later, especially if this is the first time you're doing this after it's your first, well, it's really your second quarter. Your first quarter is when you became a new member with Fellow, and then second's the first time you're doing it. Just sort by last name, sort by 500, take a quick scroll through there and see if there's any duplicates, just in case. Again, first time you're doing this, if you remember, if you were building your network, you were, maybe adding a lot of first connections from people that you worked with in the past. You had their work email address from a past Outlook or iPhone or Google contacts. Just take a quick scroll through here and delete any records of anybody in here that has, duplicates, pick one. Now, Typically what I do is I don't usually delete. Actually, we have a tag in here called duplicate that you could put there so you don't delete it. But remember, you want to keep the work email address. I'm sorry, the personal email address, not the work email address. We want to transition your contacts to personal. Now, when you get those imported, and be reminded, you have this import button up here. So you grab the CSV file and say it originated from LinkedIn. Just make sure all of the, we talked about before, all the columns match up. Now, one thing reminded here is, again, orange and yellow here. It's always reminding and educating you. If there's a question of how to import, that's what the orange and yellow is for. Every window you go to will show you how to import. Now, when you finally import these 20 people or 30 or 40 or whatever it is, if you sort by date created, the new 40 should be at the top of the new date. So that sets the foundation for the next quarter. But since you sort by date created and you have 20 here again, you can, you actually, scroll through the first names, but here is when you look at the tags. And if you want to be updated with the tagging system, if you open up a particular record and you hit the add tag, remember orange and yellow will educate you on the tags and what they mean. If you want to strategize on this more and you want to start getting more of a complex tagging system, then that's when you use the pink button to schedule a call and we can talk about it. If you're going to keep your tags very simple, of course you can add new tags up here if you want, but try not to make it overly complicated. But that's a great strategy call with us to talk about your ideas and thoughts so you can bounce back. So again, that's the reason, we have the pink button here to talk about that. But once you cleanse your contacts and your tags, then you can start building your strategy. Now, that's where you have to come in quarterly and kind of think about it. If it's, if it's like a Happy New Year letter and you want to send it to everybody, then, you keep it very simple with that letter, but you're going to go through that same process. You have a couple choices here. You could select everybody here and actually create a contact list and add everybody if you want to do some big campaign like Frank did to everybody all at once, or you can go through that process of going by one tag at a time. It just depends on your goals, and you create a contact list. And just be reminded that when you create a contact list, so if you're going to do another C-suite campaign here, you're going to save to a contact list. Just make sure when you create new contact lists that you cleanse them. All right, just to remind you how to do that. When you open up a contact list, you can check them off and you want to remove them from the contact list. So again, just because you're organizing doesn't mean that you're going to be campaigning make sure you cleanse it. Make sure you double check when you're done with a contact list on first names. And then from here, you're going to create your campaign. And just be reminded under fellow insights, you have different letters in here you can take a look at for each one of the tags. So you can scroll through and take a look at those. Again, it's tough for me to get advice right here until I understand what your goals and who you're going to communicate with. And again, that's why it's important to schedule a call if we want to talk about that strategy, especially if it's maybe the first or second time you're doing this until you get more comfortable with it. But if you are going to build a campaign, which is fine, make sure you always save a draft and always send us a review request. Bounce it off of us. Don't take it for granted. I have lots and lots of members that tried to jump around throughout the year and there's spelling errors or bounced off and something was, that needed to change, and that bounce it off of us. Let us take a look at it and get back to you with our thoughts and fix things, or just give you, the first kind of look of what your approach is. So that's where, if you're a professional, you need to upgrade to an elite so we can critique it. It's up to you. You can either have the strategy call first and upgrade, or wait till you make it and then we'll critique it once you make it. But don't send emails to your network without us critiquing it. And that goes the same thing as don't send campaigns to your network without sending a test message. Always look at it first and check all the links. But this is that approach that you want to take on a quarterly basis. And that's why we're here. And it's not just about the process as you evolve throughout the year. How do you want to evolve with your tagging system? How do you want to evolve with your communication? What are the different ways you want to communicate? And that's why we're here to help you with that strategy and making sure that, you're thinking clearly and, not only from grammar and punctuation and spelling and stuff, but just, what is the first thought when someone looks at this? So this is where we set things up. So you kind of make the decision of how you want to start with either talking to your networking expert or wait until you want us to critique. All right. But any questions, let us know. And, thanks for being a fellow member. And it's really awesome that you're back here doing this on a quarterly basis. So great job. Talk to you soon.